Evil serial killers who are worse than devil. The annals of criminal history are stained with the heinous acts of individuals who have surpassed the realms of human comprehension, earning themselves a macabre reputation as evil serial killers. These individuals, whose deeds plunge deeper than the very concept of malevolence, stand as chilling reminders of the potential for human depravity. In the twisted tapestry of criminality, there exists those whose actions are deemed worse than the devil himself, perpetrators whose monstrous acts have shocked and horrified society to its core. This exploration delves into the lives of such nefarious figures, whose sinister legacies transcend the boundaries of ordinary wickedness, leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of a horrified world. Number 5. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, a notorious American serial killer, terrorized the nation during the 1970s. Born Theodore Bundy, he was a charismatic and seemingly charming individual who used his good looks and intelligence to gain the trust of his victims. Bundy's modus operandi involved feigning injuries or impersonating authority figures to lure young women into his grasp. Once in his control, he subjected them to unthinkable acts of violence, often involving sexual assault and murder. Bundy confessed to the murders of at least 30 young women, though the actual number is believed to be much higher. His ability to blend into society and manipulate those around him made him a particularly elusive and dangerous predator. The sheer brutality and depravity of Bundy's crimes have solidified his place in history as one of the most infamous and chilling serial killers of all time. Number 4. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, infamously known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster, was an American serial killer and sex offender who committed his heinous crimes between 1978 and 1991. Born in 1960, Dahmer murdered and dismembered 17 young men, predominantly of African or Asian descent. His modus operandi involved luring his victims to his apartment, where he engaged in acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. Dahmer's crimes were characterized by a disturbing combination of sadism and psychopathy. He often drugged his victims before carrying out his gruesome acts, and his actions escalated in brutality over time. His ability to manipulate and deceive both his victims and law enforcement allowed him to elude capture for an extended period. In 1991, Dahmer's reign of terror finally came to an end when one of his intended victims managed to escape and alert the police. Dahmer was subsequently arrested and later confessed to his crimes. He was convicted of 16 murders and sentenced to 16 life terms in prison. In 1994, he was murdered by a fellow inmate in prison. Dahmer's case remains one of the most chilling examples of the depths of human depravity, and it has prompted extensive discussions about mental illness, the criminal justice system, and the factors that contribute to the development of serial killers. Number 3. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, was an American serial killer and sex offender who committed his crimes in the 1970s. Born in 1942, Gacy was a seemingly ordinary man who worked as a built-in contractor and often performed at children's parties as Pogo the Clown. Behind this facade, however, Gacy harbored a dark and sinister side. Between 1972 and 1978, he sexually assaulted and murdered at least 33 teenage boys and young men. Gacy would often lure his victims to his home, promising them construction work or other opportunities before subjecting them to torture and ultimately strangling them. Gacy's method of disposing of the bodies was particularly macabre. He buried many of his victims in the crawl space beneath his house. When his home could no longer accommodate more bodies, he disposed of them in nearby rivers. In 1978, Gacy's crimes were finally exposed when a 15-year-old boy named Robert Peast went missing, and investigators traced his last known whereabouts to Gacy's home. A search of Gacy's property revealed the horrifying extent of his crimes. Gacy was convicted of multiple counts of murder and sexual assault in 1980. He was sentenced to death and spent over a decade on death row before being executed by lethal injection in 1994. Gacy's case stands as one of the most disturbing instances of a seemingly ordinary individual leading a double life as a sadistic and prolific serial killer. Number 2. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos was an American serial killer who gained notoriety in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Born in 1956, Wuornos had a troubled upbringing marked by abuse, homelessness, and criminal activity. Her criminal record included charges of robbery, assault, and various legal issues. Wuornos committed her murders between 1989 and 1990, targeting and killing 7 men. She claimed that the killings were acts of self-defense against sexual assault, asserting that she was a victim of attempted rape by her victims. Wuornos became one of the few female serial killers in the United States, and her case garnered significant media attention. Arrested in 1991, Wuornos faced trial and was convicted for the murders. She received multiple death sentences and was executed by lethal injection in Florida in 2002. Warner's life and crimes have been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and films, sparking debates about mental illness, childhood trauma, and the impact of systemic issues on individuals who engage in violent criminal behavior. While her acts were undeniably heinous, some argue that understanding the complex factors that contributed to her actions is crucial for a more comprehensive discussion of criminal behavior and its roots. Number 1. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer, rapist, and burglar who terrorized Southern California during the mid-1980s. Born in 1960, Ramirez's criminal spree lasted from 1984 to 1985. His crimes were characterized by extreme brutality, including rape, torture, and murder. Ramirez targeted a wide range of victims, breaking into their homes during the night. His modus operandi involved using various weapons such as firearms, knives, and blunt objects to carry out his attacks. He often left satanic symbols at the crime scenes, contributing to the atmosphere of fear surrounding his crimes. The Night Stalker's reign of terror ended in 1985 when he was captured by residents in East Los Angeles after attempting a carjacking. Ramirez was subsequently convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During his trial, Ramirez displayed a lack of remorse and a fascination with the macabre. In 1989, he was sentenced to death, and he spent over 2 decades on death row before his death in 2013 from complications related to B-cell lymphoma. Richard Ramirez's crimes left an indelible mark on the public psyche, and his case has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and true crime discussions. His acts of violence and the terror he instilled in the community highlight the profound impact that serial killers can have on society. Conclusion. In conclusion, the grim tales of these evil serial killers, whose deeds are considered worse than the devil, serve as haunting reminders of the darkest corners of the human psyche. As we reflect upon the depths of their depravity, it becomes evident that the line between good and evil is often blurred by the actions of these malevolent individuals. The stories of their heinous acts not only shock us, but force us to confront the unsettling reality that such darkness can emerge from within our own species. These serial killers, more sinister than the devil himself, challenge our understanding of morality and the capacity for cruelty that exists within the human heart. In grappling with the horror of their crimes, we must strive to learn from these chilling narratives, working collectively to prevent the emergence of such monstrous figures and the atrocities they perpetrate on the fabric of society. Do you think you'd enjoy it? Click the like button and subscribe to our channels for more videos that are not only entertaining but also educational.